Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Heather.
Morning.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Ray. Good morning, David. We have guests.
We have other people here today.
This is
Yeah.
great. Just not the three of us chatting it up. But
Exactly. Yeah, we
so
like guests. We
we
definitely
like
like guests.
guests. Takes the onus away from us. So we are happy to be having our new partner with us, SafestHires, and we have Andy and David from SafestHires, and they are a global background check company. And this is just such an important piece of HR, especially in the hiring world of ensuring that we've got people that are, you know, ready to come into the organization that fit our mold, that fit our culture. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, we've got to have background checks done, and we're really super excited to partner with Andy and team. They're a really great group, and we've just enjoyed getting to know them since we've formed this partnership. So, Andy, you want to talk a little bit about your background and how you started Safest Hires?
Absolutely. And like you were saying there just a minute ago about you never really know. I mean, unfortunately, in today's day and age, you really can't judge a book by its cover. You know, you have to do a little bit of research to determine if a person's going to be suitable to bring on board to the company. And there's culture. That's very important, obviously. But then there's also the concept of negligent hiring liability, right? If a person had something in their background, some kind of a prior criminal offense where they harmed somebody in the workplace or they had a job related criminal offense and the employer did not do the due diligence to discover that, and then that person repeats that bad behavior, now that employer is on the hook for a negligent hiring lawsuit. And those things can be obscenely expensive, like in the millions of dollars, and just a huge headache for the company and not really good for the company brand. But so um, our company has three co-founders, myself and my two partners. We all served in the U.S. Navy together and then went our separate ways once we got out of the military. And we somewhat stayed in touch over the years. And we all kind of went into roles, HR, recruiting. One of our guys went into technology. And we got together around 2010. Like we all met at one of our buddies' houses and we were chit-chatting about, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could be entrepreneurs, if we could go into business together? Well, what could we do? What are our complementary skill sets? And this is what we came up with. So we launched in 2014 and we're now in our 10th year. And everything's going fantastic. And we're really honored to be involved in this partnership with you guys.
No, that's great. Yeah, we're super happy to be part of that, and we're always super excited whenever we get to partner with veteran-owned businesses. For us, that's really important. Ray has a lot of family who are former military, and his family, as do I, and so we love being able to partner with the military, former military. It just gives us a great feeling, and we just love what the military does for us, and how great military hires are, and how great military companies are for working with. You guys just know how to do things really well. So what services do you offer?
Yeah, we're full service employment background checks and drug testing. So really everything that you can think of, criminal background checks, civil record checks, driving records, employment and education verifications, healthcare sanctions. We have international capabilities in 240 countries and territories. Any sort of information that you might need for any industry or any position type that's going to give you that comfort level that this person is going to be a safe hire.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's great. Now, you know, this is really important from a compliance perspective. In background screenings, there's a lot of regulation around it. I mean, any kind of protections that you focus on around background checks from a compliance
Yeah,
perspective?
you bet. So All of, you know, historically, and when I say historically, I mean like in the last 5 to 10 years or so, a lot of companies have faced regulatory sanctions and or litigation for not following aspects of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is the main federal law that governs background checks. We as a background check company are considered a consumer reporting agency like the credit bureaus. That's how we're governed and how we're treated. So we have built into our software workflow all of the various documents that, the disclosure forms that need to be presented to candidates as standalone documents per regulations and court rulings, all the various authorization forms. There's sort of a main federal authorization form, but then there may be authorization forms for various search types required at the federal, state, or local level. Depending on where the candidate resides, our software is going to detect that and present to them all of the various disclosure and authorization forms that are specific to their jurisdictions. In addition to that, of course, we have Littler Mendelson on retainer. They're a national labor and employment law firm. They have a background checks practice group, and their shareholder who runs that group is our point of contact. So he keeps us, up to speed with regard to regulations and in particular court rulings. And then we keep our clients fully informed about that in an announcements portal inside of our software.
I think I probably helped Littler buy an island with some of the legal bills I've given them over the years. So they know me well.
Yeah, that's great.
So talk a little bit about I-9 and E-Verify. And it got changed during COVID. Now it's going back to where it was, and this is all really very confusing for companies in terms of, should I do E-Verify? Do I, what do I have to do? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have, as a member of our team, David Adams. He's had his own company for 20 plus years called Easy I-9s. He is definitely an I-9 savant. So I'm going to pass the torch to David and let him talk about I-9s and E-Verify and some of the recent changes and things to be on the lookout for.
Hey everybody, that's a really excellent question about the COVID and post-COVID DHS regulatory relaxations and all of that during that period of time. For years and years prior to COVID, I-9 and E-Verify were one of the number one topics at every single SHRM conference. You couldn't throw a brick without walking into a seminar that was discussing this. And most of the enterprise companies, all of them, at some point got on board generally with electronic I-9 tools, and some of the smaller, everybody went out and found, at the very least for their HR, an I-9 point person to handle this high liability thing that's sitting in the file cabinet or sitting in the cloud, oftentimes now. During COVID, since everybody sent all their HR home to work via Zoom, a whole heck of a lot of people became de facto remote employees in America. Still needing to meet, they didn't relax those rules about the time deadlines for the I-9 and about the documentation and filling out this, at the time, 2-page form. But they did allow for certain people who were working completely remotely to do a certain degree of this virtually by receiving the docs that are supposed to be presented into the hand of the employer via images, email or fax or what have you, with the provision that when the COVID emergency was over, you were going to have to meet with all of these people, thousands and thousands as the thing kept going, and meet with them personally to finalize the sort of tentative I-9 that you had done virtually. So last summer, at the last minute, as is often the case with USCIS, They told everybody who were already freaking out because they had maybe 30 days or 3 days to get all of those thousands of people done that they were going to relax that a bit, give them 30 days, and allow for an ongoing virtual process for the I-9 that did not require a physical meeting, but did add a Zoom meeting and various retention of list A, B, and C documents, drivers and passport and backs and barcodes and all kinds of stuff for a certain group of people that were e-verify clients in good standing. But, and here's where I think it's scary time again, they announced as part of that they would be doing a lot of auditing, worksite I-9 inspection in order to prove up this new concept as to whether it worked as well as the old one theoretically did for security and for being a de facto border fence. Because of that, they are going to have to audit somewhat randomly. It's not just going to be Pilgrim's Pride and the chicken processors and the Sunbelt subcontractors and the usual suspects, as it were, or people for whom flags have come or employees have complained. It's going to be random, something like IRS random auditing. And that's going to include e-verify clients in good standing. E-verify has always been considered something of a safe harbor. It's certainly going to protect you. The government is telling you to continue to employ this person or to terminate. And so, the onus is theoretically on them. But now they're going to be out looking at I-9s because they've got to prove this thing up. And people have really relaxed their vigilance on their I-9 file cabinets over the last 4 years. And for anything less than enterprise or large business, on the on the lower side of medium and down, most of those are using paper, and most of them have got a problem in their file cabinet. And this is coming, in my view. There's going to be a lot of people having their I-9s inspected coming up, and I think they need to get ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big job. I've had to
Yeah,
do I-9
it is.
audits before on companies, and we had to do, I think, a 7,000 person I-9 audit once, and that was a huge, huge job.
And David, this is Andy. Aren't the USIS compliance requirements very complex and very detailed to where even a relatively minor oversight could result in significant fines?
Yes, and the fines have gone up again. They're at the highest level ever per form. A couple of things. I know this is going to sound incredibly piddly, but they want the government wants the dates in the month, day, year format, and in the just revised I-9, the one previous to the one we're using now, that was in effect up until July or October of last year. It was a 2-page form, and it required on both pages, the employee page and the employer page, a N/A for not applicable citation in the empty fields, and that the lack of that is finable.
Oh
At
my
some
gosh.
point-
Wow.
I know. I've been in this for a long time.
Yeah.
And when you're doing your 7,000, Jason, there's empty fields, missing fields, things in the wrong place. The hire date's not there, or the I-9 is missing altogether. I know a lot of people have taken care of a lot of these issues, but the new potential fine amount per form, mind you, per employee I-9 is, it's approximate, give or take a few dollars, something like $280 to $2,900 effective just this past March per form at their discretion after they've inspected your I-9s. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
1,000 bad I-9s, and you're looking at an awful lot of money, and 10,000, and you're really looking at a lot of money. There have been companies that were probably not completely on the up and up. There were other problems going on, but many construction kind of firms and stuff have gone out of business based on the fines that were levied.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
So it's a scary
that
thing.
is amazing. It is a
But a
scary thing.
fixable thing if you get on it now, because it's coming in the next 18 months. I think we're going to see a lot of people get inspected just so that ICE and USCIS DHS can prove up this new pilot concept, and in order to do that, they've got to audit employers, and they've
So,
announced that they will.
so basically, an internal audit by a private firm with expertise in this field could help discover and correct all of this before one of these companies faces an actual audit.
Yep. A lot of people have got really good SHRM kind of HR people in there that know what they're looking for. But for the small to lower medium businesses, they're busy working, right? And they've got file cabinets, and this thing, I mean, it's on the face of it, it's simple form, but it's not. It's got fields, and those fields have to be done precisely per the instructions, or they have the discretion to fine you extremely, or shoot it back to you to have you corrected if they're feeling nice that day.
Well,
So certainly,
part of the problem too is that when you have to go back out and you have to re-verify I-9s to people whose I-9s aren't right, there's a huge amount of pushback in the organization, and they get very angry that they're having to do this form again. Like when I've done it before, and it was usually it was always in situations where I inherited a mess, and we just had people that were really, really, really angry that they had to do that, and so it took just a lot of time just from the going out and educating and tell people why we had to do it and why they were being asked again. That was also a huge amount of work too. So I totally hear you.
right, and that's the people that you haven't terminated in the interim, who you can't possibly get a corrected I-9.
Correct. Yeah.
And this came up just last summer when the COVID emergency ended. And now all of those thousands of people that had done this via virtual methodology suddenly had to do an I-9 again. And there wasn't time to thoroughly explain it and soothe their feels and stuff. There was a 30-day window to get this done. And I ran into a lot of people saying, why the blazes am I having to do this again? Especially, humorously enough, a very large law firm that I did this project for. And lawyers, for all that they are the ones that, make forms like this, right?
They hate them.
They don't want to do them. They were the most difficult group of all, because they, I think, felt to some extent that they were above the paperwork of the plebeians.
Yeah, and it's funny because we actually had a client, that Heather did an audit of their employee records, and it never fails. The I-9s that were missing were executives' I-9s. They had to go back and do them, and it's like the founder and CEO of the company never did an I-9 type of thing. So you got to do it. It's so important.
You
Can you guys talk a little bit about some of the changes and some of the things that are happening in the drug screening process? Because I know there's changes that are happening, or things and that are different, and specifically around how hard it is to drug test in some states, especially California, for cannabis, where we're basically not even doing that anymore. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that whole arena is a moving target and is very complex. The best way for me to characterize how to equip yourself with the knowledge on what you can and can't do, what's allowed, what's not allowed, documentation that you have to keep, etc., is to partner with a background screening firm that uses a highly reputable, highly certified third-party drug testing and occupational health services company. So we at SafestHires unfortunately don't really have the top of mind expertise to speak to those issues, and there's a lot of legal liability involved in what we can and can't say about that service type anyway. So we typically defer to our third party administrator partner, which is called i3 Screen. um, they're one of the most well known and reputable drug testing and occupational health service vendors in the country, and actually, Ray, they're headquartered in Denver. So,
What I would add on that is that we are definitely experts in what needs to happen in that cannabis space. So we're more than happy to work with companies to talk to them about what should you do if you're considering doing drug screenings, and you're considering screening for cannabis. So we can walk you through that, and then obviously we would partner with you all to get that process done. But it's a really sticky place right now, and I just want to make sure that we talk about that, because a lot of companies are basically stepping away from doing any type of screening for cannabis in general. Or if they do, it's a very well coordinated and scripted approach internally. So we're happy to be partnering with you guys on that.
The other area of drug testing that's taking a turn and becoming a little more complex from a regulatory process in doing the drug testing, and then especially the record keeping, is DOT drug testing. That's always been, a fairly complex endeavor anyway, but now it's becoming even more so with some new emerging regulations. And so having, a third-party administrator that's well-versed in all things DOT regulations for drug and occupational health services, physicals, and so forth is an absolute must in today's day and age.
Absolutely. And the other one that's starting to change too, where we'll see this, I think, a little bit more down the road, maybe another 18 to 24 months, and hold on to your hats, is the use of psychedelic mushrooms. So I know that I know that sounds humorous. I know you want to laugh, but the people are becoming more receptive to that as a acceptable form of recreational drug use. So
the voters in the city and county of Denver not long ago passed recreational mushrooms as so I mean it's happening.
Yeah, it is.
We were just talking about, I'm assuming, new hire drug testing. We haven't even talked about the random,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also I mean, if you're not a DOT client, you're just you can structure a random program with a considerable amount of flexibility in terms of you can have your own random setup, or you can be part of a consortium, which is even easier, because then your people may or may not get a pull. But if you're roped into this consortium, you're compliant, whether or not your people get pulled or not, because you're part of this larger group. But if it's a DOT randoms, then it's a very rigid and regulated process. And typically, the more reputable third-party administrators will take on that entire responsibility for a very modest fee. I know i3 Screen, I think they charge like $500 a year, and they'll manage the entire process from A to Z for you and maintain all of the record keeping that needs to be produced in the event that there's any kind of an audit. So it's a really solid outfit for us to be doing business with, for sure.
Okay, here's the other one, which is really important. The VP of sales calls, or the chief revenue officer calls, to have a sales guy. I want to hire him. He needs to be hired tomorrow. And we say, we have a background check that needs to be done. You guys have a great system for turning around background checks really quickly. So you want to talk a little bit about what your process is? So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, so our software is electronically integrated with about 2,700 of the nation's 3,200 county courts. And so if a person doesn't have any records on file at the county courthouse, because of those integrations, our system is able to close that search nearly instantly, which significantly speeds up our turnaround time on those county criminal searches that were historically mostly done by outside court researchers having to go to the county courthouse and deliver the information. In that little window of courthouses where we don't have the integration, so the whatever 500 or so courts, that's still how it's done. A researcher gets the order. They typically hang out at the courthouse all day anyway, or they're in close proximity to the courthouse. They go to a public access terminal, they pull the information and report it back to us. But yeah, I think our average turnaround time on a county criminal search is like 1.5 days, which is really pretty fast by industry standards. Now, there's always bound to be some weird hiccup happening at the courthouse level. Maybe the courthouse recently experienced a data breach, or they're migrating their records from an old software system to a new software system, or maybe they had a bunch of people catch COVID and now they're operating with a skeleton crew. Different things can pop up that can cause delays in that process, but those are definitely the exception to the rule. And then in addition to that, one of the things we found through really trial and error when we first got started was that sometimes an employment verification or an education verification can't be performed through normal channels. The school is closed, the records don't exist anymore, the employer's no longer in business, what have you. And so the old school way of proving up that verification was to obtain like an earnings statement or a W-2 for a prior employer, or possibly notarized transcript, or maybe even like a color copy of the person's degree. And we would have to reach the employer, explain all of that to them. They would contact the candidate. The candidate would have to dig this stuff up, get it back to either us or the employer, what have you. Well, in our portal now, candidates go through our portal where they're presented with all their disclosures and they electronically sign their authorization form. And they are given the option at that stage of the process to upload a W-2 or an earnings statement or a copy of their transcript or degree. And if the employer will allow us to verify on the basis of one of those proof documents, then we can close those things out super fast. It can shave off 2 to 5 days of the verification process. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So anything, Andy or David, that you want to add before we close our time here?
I mean, we're really being that we are former, the company's run by former military personnel. We all kind of adopted a unique kind of work ethic, a service-oriented work ethic in the military, and we pass that down to our team members through training mostly. We're very nimble, right? And we're very solution oriented, and we have a CTO who helps make sure that our software is doing things on the leading edge of the industry in terms of rapid turnaround, service quality, accuracy, and so forth. So I would just say that if you're at all curious about what is possible, contact us and compare us to your current vendor. We'll give you 3 or 4 background checks that you did with your current vendor, and you can compare, how long it takes us to get it done, what the information quality looks like, what the overall experience is in, being serviced by our team. And I'm highly confident that you're going to feel like we're a better fit.
So you can find their link at the top of our site. So if you want to do a background check, you want to go in there and you want to find out more about SafestHires, you can just go to our website and click on the information that we have there, and it'll take you right to it. And then, Andy, if they want to email you directly, how do they do that?
Yeah, so the easiest way to contact us is to come to our website, Safest, SAFEST, hires, HIRES.com. And there's a link there to contact us. And when they click that, they can schedule a phone call with me using my meetings app. So they'll be able to see, like, days and times on my calendar that work well for them. And they fill out a quick online form and we can jump on the phone together. And while we're on that call, if they want to see our software, I can do a quick demo for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
So glad you guys joined us today.
All right. Well, we
Fantastic.
love that. We love to have guests. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you guys on more so that we can talk about important events and important changes in this space. David, thanks for the I-9 updates. I know that it's always a challenge and everybody gets confused about what we need to do here with I-9. So thanks for that. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We're honored. We appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you guys.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Thank
Thanks,
you, guys.
David.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good day.
Bye.
You too.